Christians in Egypt are facing backlash from radical Muslims for opposing former President Mohamed Morsi. His supporters say Christian leaders were behind his ouster.
Christians have had their homes burned and some have even been killed. George Thomas has the story.
Supporters of ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi are angry, and the brunt of that anger is being directed at the country's Christian minority.
The Christians have been very visible in the anti-Brotherhood, anti-Morsi protests so far, and this high visibility has angered a lot of Islamists, whether from the Brotherhood or from other Islamist movements.
On Thursday, the body of a Christian merchant was found decapitated in a cemetery. Last Saturday, a Coptic Christian priest was shot by gunmen in an outdoor market. And days after the military coup that removed Morsi from office, Muslim extremists in southern Egypt burned dozens of Christian homes and stabbed 4 believers to death.
It's part of the Brotherhood's mobilization that they are targeting Christians, that they are renouncing them as behind this. If the Brotherhood is able to portray what happened as a Christian-dominated or Christian-driven protest, then they get to gain massive support in the streets.
The former Pope of Egypt's Coptic Christian community encouraged believers to stay out of the public eye and politics for fear of backlash. But the community's new Pope openly supported the removal of Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood from office.
In a sense, the Coptic Pope's participation in the military's meeting with figures from the Egyptian society will neither be forgotten nor will it be forgiven.
Meanwhile, Egypt's new military-backed government ordered the arrest of the Muslim Brotherhood's spiritual leader and 9 others. They're suspected of instigating violence outside the Republican Guard building in Cairo this week. U.S. officials have shown satisfaction with the new government's plan to reinstate democratically elected leaders. And on Thursday, defense officials announced that U.S. aid to Egypt would continue with a delivery of F-16 fighter jets in coming weeks. Officially, though, the Obama administration is choosing to remain neutral in the crisis. George Thomas, CBN News.
Please pray for the Coptic Church in Egypt. It's one of the largest Christian churches in the Middle East. Egypt used to be a Christian nation until the Muslims took over, and now the Christians are about 10% of the population. They famously said, we're used to martyrdom, but they did that from being quiet and behind their church walls, and the Muslims still came and killed them. Well, now they're out from the churches, participating in the political process, and their new pope called for political activism, that Christians were now free to participate in the political process, and he openly endorsed the ouster of the president and the military taking over and holding new elections. For that, the Muslim Brotherhood has already said, we won't forget, and we will persecute you, and we will drive you out of Egypt. And that's the price they're paying for trying to seek liberty, trying to seek freedom, trying to participate in the political process. So pray for Egypt, pray for a peaceful solution to this, and the violence would stop. But at the same time, I ask you to pray, but I even have doubts, will the peace happen? There's a reason Anwar Sadat put all the Muslim Brotherhood leadership in jail, and that's to keep this very thing from happening. Well, some Egyptians are hoping for better days once the crisis has passed. Wendy Griffith has that story from the CBN Newsroom. Wendy?
Gordon, with President Morsi gone, Egyptians are hoping that their economy will bounce back and that the tourists from around the world will start visiting them again. Here's Chris Mitchell from the Great Pyramids in Cairo.
When millions of Egyptians took to the streets, many complained of economic hardships under President Morsi.
The electricity was often going off, no benzene, no solar, and the life of the Egyptians became very difficult.
Perhaps the hardest hit sector of Egypt's economy has been its tourism industry. After Egypt's first revolution in 2011, the tourism industry was devastated. Not many tourists came to see the pyramids or the Sphinx. The hope for many Egyptians is that after the second revolution, they'll come back. During Egypt's first revolution that deposed Mubarak, many of the tour guides from the pyramids rode into Tahrir Square to protest. They said the revolution was driving away business. Since then, most tourists have stayed away.
Since the first revolution, 2011, the business is very bad. There is no tourists at all, just very few. 80% from the tourism is down. For example, I used to make a tour trip every day at the pyramid area. Right now, I just make one tour every couple of days.
Michael has been a tour guide at Egypt's Great Pyramids for more than 20 years.
You know, the people don't want to come here because they are not feel safe. When the people feel safe, many people want to come see the pyramid. This is one of the 7 wonders. And we used to have thousands of people here. So I think it will take a time. People will start to come back again.
It's a hope shared by many Egyptians.
I will ask all the viewers to pray for us, and I will tell them to flourish our economy by visiting Egypt and sending many tourists as they can.
Michael hopes they come back to one of the 7 wonders of the world.
I want to tell the people all over the world, come to see our place. It's a very good place, and it's very safe and no problem. And Egypt people are very good. And I want to tell all the Americans, please come here because you are the best. This is true, it's not compliment. I hope American people come here a lot.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Great Pyramids, Cairo, Egypt.
This is true. It's not a compliment. I love that. Well, back here at home, Pennsylvania's Attorney General says she will not defend the state's law that protects traditional marriage. Gay activists are suing to overturn that law. It's her duty to defend state laws. But Attorney General Kathleen Kane says she's choosing to, quote, end another wave of discrimination.
It is exciting. I think it's very historic. The fact that we are breaking down yet another wave of inequality or discrimination is a good day.
Now it's up to the governor's lawyer to uphold the state's Defense of Marriage Act. But those who believe marriage is between one man and one woman say that judges and lawsuits are circumventing the will of the people.
And when people have had the opportunity to vote at the ballot box about whether marriage should remain as it has always been, the union of one man and one woman, that's what the people want. And we think the people should have a voice.
23 people are suing the state of Illinois, including 10 gay and lesbian couples. The Supreme Court of Illinois has upheld a law requiring doctors to notify parents of underage girls seeking an abortion. The law first passed back in 1995 but never took effect. This new decision clears the way for the state to enforce it after 2 decades of court battles. It says that a parent or guardian would have to be notified at least 48 hours before an abortion is performed on a minor. The Thomas More Society defended the law. They argued it's constitutional and that other states have upheld similar laws.
If you ask the parent of a 13-year-old, hey, would you want your daughter being taken for an abortion without you knowing? They're going to say no. Whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, this common sense measure makes sense.
The law goes into effect in 35 days. Well, could Big Brother use your DNA to track you? Countries are building DNA databases to fight crime and terrorism, but experts worry that genetic information could be misused. The U.S. has the biggest DNA database with information on 11 million people suspected or convicted of crimes. And the police can collect DNA from anyone who's been arrested. But experts say DNA can also be used to track people's movements, find out their medical history and psychological profile. And Gordon, I think that's what is disturbing everyone. We don't mind if it's used to find terrorists, but we don't want people tracking our every movement.
Well, I think we've already crossed the Rubicon on this one. In the effort to stop terrorism, I think Americans are voluntarily giving up the freedoms that were established in our Constitution. And whether that's what you do on the internet, who you have phone calls with, or the very substance of your life, your DNA, we have voluntarily given up our rights to keep that private in a vain effort, I think, to provide security. They can talk about the number of cases that they've thwarted, but when you start thinking about the millions of Americans who are now swept up into these databases, what will the government do with this information, and can we trust the government to keep what's private private? Now, there's an interesting case that just happened that sheds a light. It's more than just those who are arrested who are having their DNA sampled. Detectives followed the nephew of someone they thought was the Boston Strangler. This man's been dead for a long time, but his nephew was live and kicking, had committed no crime, no suspicion he was ever going to commit a crime, but they were following him. Why? In order to get a DNA sample. And so when he finished drinking a cup which had a straw on it, they swooped down, picked up the cup from the garbage, made a DNA test on his saliva, and then came to a conclusion that the man they'd been suspecting all along of being the Boston Strangler really was. So it's more than just those who are arrested. It seems the police have the ability to pick up DNA samples from even the things that we throw away. And the law says right now there's nothing wrong with it. I think we need some action here from Congress. Whether or not we can get any with this deadlock is open, but certainly we need to start insisting what's private and what's ours should remain ours, absent some kind of warrant that enables law enforcement and the government to search us.
The death toll in a major train accident in Canada has been raised to 50. Canadian officials are still investigating the derailment that set off a fiery explosion in Quebec. The freight train, operated by Montreal, Maine and Atlantic Railway, had stopped Saturday for a crew change when it began to roll downhill without a conductor. It derailed at a curve in the tracks. Several of its cars exploded near the town of Lac-Mégantic. All but one of the 73 cars were carrying oil. 20 bodies were found, and the missing 30 people are now considered dead. The fiery blast incinerated 30 nearby buildings, and it forced thousands from their homes. Operation Blessing opened a cosmetology school in Honduras to help victims of trafficking learn some professional skills. The school is inside of Casitas, a government institution that houses more than 100 girls who've been abused or trafficked. Operation Blessing teams renovated a room, putting in flooring, electricity, and salon equipment. 30 girls are currently in classes 4 days a week. Teachers provided by OB teach girls about outer beauty as well as inner beauty, self-esteem, and confidence. And you can find more about Operation Blessing by going to their website at ob.org.